The coffee grounds smelled like every other Saturday morning in Brookhaven, rich, dark, and completely ordinary. I was measuring out my usual 3 scoops when I heard the soft padding of footsteps behind me. "Morning, sweetheart," I said without turning around, recognizing Jennifer's light step. My daughter-in-law was usually an early riser, but not this early. It was barely 9 o'clock. When I turned, the smile died on my lips. Jen stood in the kitchen doorway looking like she'd seen a ghost. Her face was sheet white, and her hands, normally so steady from years working ICU at Emory, were trembling. She wore the same clothes from yesterday, wrinkled now, and her dark hair hung loose around her face instead of pulled back in her usual neat ponytail. "Jen, you okay?" I set down the coffee scoop, concerned. She glanced over her shoulder toward the hallway, then moved quickly across the kitchen. Her fingers were ice cold when she pressed something small into my palm. The movement was so swift, so furtive, that it took me a second to realize she'd given me a folded piece of paper. "Read it," she whispered, her brown eyes wide with fear. "Please." I unfolded the note. The handwriting was Jen's. I recognized her neat printing from grocery lists and birthday cards. But the letters were shaky, written in obvious haste. "Pretend you're sick. Leave now." I looked up at her, confused. "What?" "Morning, Dad." David's voice echoed from the stairway, cheerful and loud. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" My son appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed in business casual, pressed khakis and a light blue button-down that made him look like the successful financial advisor he was. At 35, David had his mother's blonde hair and my blue eyes, along with that easy charm that had won him clients all across Atlanta. But something in Jen's desperate expression made me stay quiet about the note. "You're both up early," David said, moving to the coffee maker. He kissed Jen's cheek. She flinched, I noticed, before reaching for a mug. "What are you two whispering about?" "Nothing important," I heard myself say automatically. The note was burning in my palm. David's smile didn't quite reach his eyes as he studied us. "You sure?" "Jen looks upset." "I'm fine," Jen said, but her voice cracked on the last word. My son had been stressed lately, I'd noticed. Phone calls at odd hours, hushed conversations behind closed doors. He'd blamed it on work pressure. The market was volatile, clients demanding. I'd chalked it up to the usual financial sector headaches. But Jen's hand suddenly gripped my arm, fingernails digging in through my flannel shirt. "Please," she breathed so quietly that only I could hear. "Trust me." 62 years of life had taught me to trust my instincts, and right now, every instinct was screaming that something was very, very wrong. I pressed my hand to my forehead dramatically. "Actually, David, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. Might be my blood pressure acting up again." David's expression shifted, just for a second, so fast I almost missed it. Not concern. Something else. Disappointment? Calculation? "Are you sure you're okay, Dad?" He set his coffee mug down carefully, watching me. "Maybe you should lie down." "I think I need some fresh air," I said, reaching for my car keys on the hook. "And my blood pressure medication. Jen, would you mind driving me to CVS?" I watched my son's face carefully. He should have offered to drive himself. He should have insisted I rest. Instead, he just nodded slowly. "Sure, Dad. Whatever you need." His tone was solicitous, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "Feel better?" 10 minutes later, Jen and I sat in my Honda Civic in the parking lot of Piedmont Park, 3 miles from home. The morning joggers were out in force, the Atlanta sun already warming the pavement. But inside the car, I felt cold. "Tell me," I said quietly. Jen's hands were still shaking as she gripped the steering wheel. She'd insisted on driving, probably because she knew I'd be too shocked to keep the car steady when she told me whatever this was. "Last night around 2 in the morning, I couldn't sleep," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't been sleeping well for weeks, actually. Something's been off with David." I waited, my retired engineer's mind already trying to solve this problem before I even knew what it was. "I went downstairs for water," she continued. "The house was dark, but I saw light coming from under David's office door. I heard his voice. He was on a call? He was talking to someone, and Robert—" She turned to look at me, tears streaming down her face. "He was talking about you, about this morning." My chest tightened. "What exactly did you hear?" "The old man drinks his coffee at exactly 9:30 every Saturday. Jen recited, the words obviously burned into her memory. Symptoms should start within an hour. By 10:30, cardiac arrest. Natural causes, clean and simple. The world seemed to tilt sideways. That can't be right. You must have misunderstood. I didn't. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. I recorded it. The audio's not great through the door, but you can hear enough. She played the video. The sound was muffled, but I could make out David's voice, that familiar tone I'd heard my whole life as a father, talking about my death like he was planning a business transaction. Jesus Christ, I whispered. There's more. Jen swiped to her photo gallery. After he finally went to bed around 3, I went into his office. I know his passwords. He uses the same one for everything. Our anniversary. She gave a bitter laugh. I found these. Bank statements filled her phone screen. I squinted at the numbers in the morning light. David Hayes owed $450,000. Gambling debts, Jen said quietly. I didn't even know he gambled, Robert. Not like this. Underground poker rooms, sports betting, high-stakes casino trips to Biloxi. I scrolled through the images, my engineering mind struggling to process the numbers. David made good money as a financial advisor, 6 figures easily. How had he burned through this much? Keep going, Jen urged. The next photo made my stomach drop. A life insurance policy. Pacific Life Group. Policyholder, Robert Michael Hayes. Beneficiary, David Hayes. Death benefit, $750,000. When did I sign this? I asked, my voice hollow. 6 months ago, remember? David said it was just smart planning, protecting the family in case anything happened to you. You'd just turned 62, and he said at your age, it was responsible to have coverage. I did remember. David had presented it so reasonably, so lovingly. Dad, I just want to make sure you're taken care of. And if something happens, I don't want you worrying about funeral costs or leaving debt behind. I'd signed without reading it carefully, trusting my son completely. Robert, he's been stealing from you too. Jen showed me more photos, bank statements from my own accounts. Small transfers, $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Nothing big enough to trigger alerts or make you look twice at your statements. Over the past 8 months, he's moved 280 songs into an account under his name only. The coffee grounds I'd smelled that morning threatened to come back up. My retirement savings. Most of it, yes. I stared out at the joggers in Piedmont Park, people living normal Saturday mornings, and tried to wrap my head around what Jen was telling me. My son, the boy I'd raised alone after his mother died, the kid I'd taught to throw a baseball and drive a stick shift, was planning to murder me. But Jen, I corrected myself, my mind scrambled. Even if what you're saying is true, why wouldn't you just call the police? Why this cloak and dagger stuff? She looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. Because David is smart, Robert, and charming. If I'd called the police with just my testimony and these photos, what would happen? I thought about it with my engineer's logic. He'd say you doctored them, that you're unstable, maybe mentally ill, that you're the one stealing, and you're trying to frame him. Exactly. He'd have character witnesses, his colleagues, his clients, your neighbors. They all see charming, successful David Hayes, devoted son taking care of his aging father. She wiped her eyes roughly. And I'm just the daughter-in-law who married him a year ago, who even knows me. She was right. David had always been persuasive. He'd convinced me to sign that insurance policy to give him access to my accounts for easier estate management, to update my will. How long had he been planning this? My phone buzzed. Phone. Text from David. Dad, where did you go? I'm worried about you. Come home, I have good news. He's panicking, I said, showing Jen the message. Her phone buzzed too. She checked it and went even paler. He texted me 5 minutes ago. Where did you take Dad? Is he okay? We stared at each other as the reality sank in. We have maybe 2 hours, I said, my retired engineer's mind clicking into problem-solving mode despite the horror of it all. Before he realizes we know, before he takes action. What kind of action? Jen asked, though I could see in her eyes that she already knew. I looked at the timeline again on her phone. The note David had written, Saturday 9:30 a.m., coffee. Plan B, if absent, Sunday dinner, wine. Plan C, Monday morning, vitamins. He has backup plans, I said slowly. If I didn't drink the coffee this morning, which I didn't, he's going to try again, tomorrow at dinner, Monday morning with my daily vitamins. Jen, we're on a countdown here. She nodded, resolved. So what do we do? We need evidence that can't be explained away. Physical proof, the poison itself, if that's what he's using. Communication with his creditors showing the threats, the desperation. Something undeniable. We need to go back to the house, Jen said. He's there. He has a meeting this morning, she reminded me. Remember? He mentioned it yesterday. Some investors coming by at 10 to discuss a real estate opportunity. I checked my watch. 9:45. We have a tiny window. Then we'd better not waste it. As we drove back through Brookhaven's tree-lined streets, I saw my neighborhood with new eyes. These safe, perfect suburban facades. Behind any of them, how many other secrets festered? How many other David Hayeses existed, charming on the outside, calculating murder on the inside? There, Jen pointed as we turned onto my street. 3 unfamiliar cars sat in my driveway. A black Lexus, a silver Mercedes, and a BMW sedan I didn't recognize. Through the front window, I could see David gesturing animatedly to 3 men in business suits. Perfect timing, Jen breathed. When David's in business mode, he hates interruptions, especially from family. He'll be completely focused on impressing these guys. I studied the scene carefully. The men looked serious, professional. One of them, silver-haired, sharp-featured, expensive suit, was taking notes in a leather portfolio. Something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it. Here's the plan, I said, my engineering mind laying it out like a blueprint. I go in the front door. I'll join their meeting, play the concerned father who's feeling better and wants to be involved in his son's business ventures. Keep David occupied and in sight. I'll use the back door, Jen added. The spare key is still under the blue flower pot, right? Should be. His office? Locked desk drawer, bottom right. He thinks I don't know he keeps the key taped under the desk rim. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. And the filing cabinet behind his computer, that's where he keeps his really private business papers. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 houses down from my home, understanding the magnitude of what we were about to do. If David caught us, if he suspected we knew. Jen, if something goes wrong, if he realizes what we're doing, you run. Don't worry about me. Just get out and call 911. She squeezed my hand. We're going to find the proof, Robert. We have to. Through the window, I watched David laugh at something one of the investors said, his perfect smile, his confident body language. My son, the stranger. 30 minutes, Max, I said, checking my watch. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. The familiar warmth of my own home felt alien as I stepped through the front door. Everything looked the same. The photos on the wall, the worn armchair where I read the newspaper, the smell of coffee still lingering. But it was all contaminated now by the knowledge of what David had planned. Animated conversation drifted from the living room. I took a deep breath and walked in. Gentlemen, I announced, putting on my best recovering patient smile. I'm feeling much better. Don't mind me, I'm just curious about my son's latest venture. David's head snapped toward me, surprise flickering across his features before his practiced smile returned. But I saw it. The brief flash of frustration, maybe even anger. Dad, you look better. He stood, moving to guide me to a chair. Are you sure you should be up? Fresh air worked wonders, I replied, settling into my usual spot. Please, continue. I'd love to hear about this investment opportunity. The 3 businessmen nodded politely. The silver-haired one I'd noticed earlier stood and extended his hand. Gregory Sullivan, he said smoothly. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hayes. Your son speaks highly of you. Something about Sullivan's grip was too firm, his smile too practiced, but I pushed the unease aside and focused on my role. The pleasure's mine. So tell me, what are we investing in? For the next 20 minutes, I played the interested father while my heart hammered against my ribs. Sullivan presented slides on his laptop about Atlanta commercial real estate, strip malls, office buildings, projected returns. David chimed in with enthusiastic commentary about ground floor opportunities and repositioning undervalued assets. I asked intelligent questions, drawing on my engineering background to query about building codes, structural assessments, renovation costs. The other 2 investors seemed impressed. David looked proud, but I noticed his eyes kept drifting toward the ceiling, toward his office where Jen was working. Meanwhile, upstairs, Jen had slipped through the back door and navigated silently to David's second-floor office. Her nursing training and staying calm under pressure served her well now. She'd found the key exactly where she said it would be, taped under the desk rim in a small manila envelope. The lock clicked open softly. The bottom drawer was organized with David's typical precision: insurance papers, client files, tax documents, and there, tucked behind a folder marked estate planning, an amber glass vial, no larger than her thumb, no label, clear liquid inside. Jen's hands shook as she photographed it from every angle, then carefully extracted the vial using a tissue and placed it in a Ziploc bag from her purse. She'd come prepared. The financial documents were in the filing cabinet, just as she'd suspected. Statements from something called Blue Line Capital, clearly not a legitimate bank. The letterhead looked cheaply printed, and the language in the letters was unmistakable. Final notice. Amount due, $450,000. You have 72 hours to remit payment in full or face consequences. We do not make idle threats. The date on the letter was from last week. The deadline was this coming Monday, 3 days from now. Jen photographed everything, her phone's camera shutter barely audible. Bank statements showing the systematic theft from Robert's accounts, printed emails arranging offshore transfers. And then she found it. David's handwritten timeline on a yellow legal pad. Saturday, 9:30 a.m., coffee, digoxin and grounds. Plan B if absent, Sunday dinner, wine, backup supply. Plan C, Monday morning, daily vitamins. Final option, expected TOD, 10:30 a.m., Saturday. Call 911 at 10:45, too late for intervention. Cause of death, cardiac arrest, pre-existing condition. The clinical precision of it made her sick. He'd planned multiple attempts over one weekend, giving himself 3 chances to kill his own father. But as she photographed the last page, she noticed something else in the drawer. A phone, not David's iPhone, but a cheap flip phone, a burner. She flipped it open. Recent text from an unknown number. Package delivered to address, untraceable. Payment due on completion. Confirmed timeline. Window is narrow. Other arrangements proceeding as discussed. Other arrangements? Jen's blood ran cold. Was David planning to kill her too? She photographed the burner phone's screen, her hands shaking worse now. Then she heard it, footsteps in the hallway downstairs. David's voice, louder now, closer to the stairs. "I'll just check on my father quickly," he was saying to his guests. "Make yourselves comfortable. This won't take a moment." Jen froze, the burner phone still in her hands. The footsteps began climbing the stairs, heavy, deliberate, David's distinctive tread. She had maybe 10 seconds. Jen shoved the burner phone back into the drawer and quietly pushed it shut, but the lock mechanism clicked, too loud in the silent house. She looked around frantically. No back exit from David's office, no closet to hide in. The window overlooked the front yard where the investors' cars were parked. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. She grabbed her phone, clutching the evidence she'd photographed, and moved toward the door. Maybe she could slip past him, claim she was looking for the bathroom, anything. The office door swung open. David stood in the doorway, his expression transforming from practiced concern to cold fury as he took in the scene. His daughter-in-law standing beside his desk, the drawer slightly ajar, her phone in her hand, screen still glowing with the last photo she'd taken. "What the hell are you doing in here?" His voice was quiet, controlled, somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. I was looking for aspirin," Jen stammered, hating how weak she sounded. "Robert had another headache, and I thought you might have some in my locked drawer." David stepped into the room, and Jen instinctively backed up. "With my private business documents spread all over my desk?" She glanced down. In her haste, she'd left the filing cabinet slightly open, papers visible inside. David's eyes moved from her phone to the open drawer to the damaged lock she'd picked with a bobby pin. His jaw clenched. "Where's my father?" "Downstairs, with your investors." Jen tried to keep her voice steady. "He's fine, David. Just let me—" "Robert!" David's shout echoed through the house. "Get up here! Now!" Footsteps, heavier ones, started up the stairs. I appeared in the doorway moments later, taking in the scene instantly. David blocking the exit, Jen trapped beside the desk, the evidence of our search visible everywhere. "David, what's going on?" I tried to sound confused, concerned. "I heard you yelling." "What's going on?" my son said, his voice like ice. is that you two have been going through my private office, breaking into my locked drawers, photographing my personal documents." He turned his sharp gaze on me. "You want to explain that, Dad?" I stepped into the room, trying to position myself between David and Jen. "Son, we were just—" "Shut up!" The venom in his voice made me flinch. This wasn't my son anymore, not the charming businessman who'd been entertaining investors downstairs. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. "Both of you move, now." David stepped aside, gesturing sharply toward the hallway. "We're going to have a little family meeting, somewhere more private." "David, please," Jen began. "Move!" His voice cracked like a whip. We had no choice. I went first, Jen close behind me, David following like a predator stalking wounded prey. From downstairs, I could hear Sullivan's voice asking someone if everything was all right. "Master bedroom," David ordered, his hand on my shoulder, not guiding, but pushing. "Now." The master bedroom had been mine and my late wife's. After Sarah died 10 years ago, I'd kept it exactly the same, unable to change the space we'd shared. The door was solid oak with a heavy lock, original to the 1950s house, the kind that locked from the outside with an old-fashioned skeleton key. "Inside," David commanded. "Son, what are you doing?" I asked, but I already knew. "Cleaning up your mess." He pushed us both through the doorway. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into. Either of you." "David, we know about the debts," I said quickly. "About the money you owe. We can help you. There are options that don't involve—" "Options?" David laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think there are options with these people? You think I can just declare bankruptcy and they'll forgive $500,000? He shook his head. "You really have no idea how the world works, do you, Dad?" The door slammed shut. The old lock clicked into place. I pounded on the solid wood. "David! David! Open this door!" But his footsteps were already moving away, back toward the stairs. His voice drifted up, smooth and apologetic again, the businessman mask firmly back in place. "Gentlemen, I'm terribly sorry, but we've had a family emergency. My father's taken a turn for the worse, and I need to handle some personal matters. Could we reschedule for next week?" Jen was already at the window, testing the old wood frame. "It's painted shut," she muttered, pushing harder. "Robert, help me." Together we forced the window open. The drop to the backyard lawn looked steeper than I remembered, at least 15 feet, maybe more. "Too high to jump," I said. "Not if we make a rope." Jen was already pulling at the heavy velvet curtains my wife had chosen decades ago. "These will hold." "Jen, you can't be serious. Do you have a better idea?" She yanked the curtains down, the old rod clattering to the floor. "Because David just locked us in and I don't think he's planning to let us out peacefully." She was right. Through the window, I could see the investors loading into their cars, shaking their heads. David stood on the front porch, waving goodbye with that perfect smile. Then his expression shifted as he pulled out his phone. "We need to move fast," Jen said, already stripping the sheets from the bed. Her fingers worked quickly, tying knots with surprising expertise. Girl Scouts. Some skills you never forget. I grabbed the comforter, the extra blankets from the closet. Together, we created a crude rope, testing each knot. Jen secured one end to the massive oak dresser that had belonged to my grandfather. Solid wood, easily 700 pounds. "You go first," she insisted. "No, you're lighter. Robert, you're heavier. If it holds you, it'll hold me. And if it doesn't—" She didn't finish the sentence. The fabric rope hung from the window, swaying slightly in the morning breeze. I could hear David's voice downstairs again. Urgent phone conversations, planning something. I swung my legs over the windowsill, gripping the makeshift rope. My 62-year-old hands weren't as strong as they used to be, and the fabric burned as I lowered myself down. The sheets stretched under my weight, and for one heart-stopping moment, I thought they might tear. But Jen's knots held. The final 6 feet I simply dropped, hitting the soft grass hard enough to jar my knees. But I was down. "Okay," I called up quietly. "Your turn." Jen descended faster, her athletic build and nursing job keeping her in better shape than me. She dropped beside me just as we heard David's furious voice from inside the house. "Going somewhere?" We ran. The low fence between my yard and the Mitchells' next door had never seemed so tall. I practically threw myself over it, Jen vaulting smoothly behind me. We sprinted across their lawn, probably destroying their carefully maintained grass, but there was no time to care. My Honda was parked 2 houses down where we'd left it. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, as Jen threw herself into the passenger seat. "Go, go, go!" she shouted. The engine turned over. Thank God for reliable Japanese engineering. Just as David burst through my front door, his face was twisted with rage, all pretense of the charming businessman gone. I floored the accelerator. The tires squealed against the pavement as we shot down the quiet residential street. In the rearview mirror, I saw David running toward his BMW, phone pressed to his ear, making a call. To whom? The police? His creditors? Someone worse? "He's coming," Jen said, watching through the side mirror. Sure enough, the black BMW roared to life and tore out of my driveway. David wasn't trying to be subtle anymore. What followed was the most terrifying 20 minutes of my life. David drove like a man possessed, closing the distance between us, despite my Honda's best efforts. At a red light on Peachtree, he rammed our bumper hard enough to snap my head back. "Call 911, I shouted, swerving to avoid another impact. Jen already had her phone out. "911, what's your emergency?" "My husband is trying to kill us," she screamed into the phone. "We're on Peachtree heading north from Brookhaven. He's ramming our car, trying to run us off the road." "Ma'am, stay calm. Can you tell me your location?" But David hit us again, harder this time. The phone flew from Jen's hand, clattering somewhere under the seat. The BMW was faster, more powerful. David pulled alongside us at 60 miles per hour on a residential street, trying to force us into parked cars. I saw his face through the window, not my son anymore, but something feral and desperate. "There," Jen pointed, "Lenox Square." The sprawling shopping mall appeared ahead. I jerked the wheel, tires screaming, and shot into the parking deck entrance. The Honda was smaller, more maneuverable than David's BMW. I weaved between parked cars, taking turns too sharp. Too fast, my heart hammering. Level 2, Level 3. Behind a row of delivery trucks, I finally stopped, killing the engine. We sat in silence, both of us breathing hard. Through the concrete pillars, I could see David's BMW prowling past, hunting. He passed our hiding spot once, twice. Then his phone rang. I could hear it even from here, and he answered, his angry voice echoing through the parking structure. After what felt like an eternity, the BMW's engine growled and faded. He was leaving. Jen found her phone under the seat, the screen cracked but still working. The 911 call had dropped. "We can't stay here," I said, my hand still trembling on the wheel. "He knows we have evidence. He's going to act fast." "So what do we do?" Jen asked. Jen tossed it. "We can't go home. We can't go to my parents. He knows where they live. Robert, where can we go that's safe?" I thought of my old college roommate, Thomas Mitchell. We went to Georgia Tech together back in the 80s. He's a criminal defense attorney now, one of Atlanta's best, works out of Peachtree Center downtown. I dialed from memory. Tom answered on the second ring. "Robert Hayes, this is unexpected. How the hell are you?" "Tom, I need urgent help." I took a deep breath. "My son is trying to kill me, and I can prove it." There was a pause. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "Can we meet at your office?" "Come now, Peachtree Center, 15th floor. I'll clear my morning." Thomas Mitchell's corner office commanded a stunning view of Atlanta's skyline. Normally, I would have appreciated it, but right now all I could focus on was the evidence spread across his mahogany desk. Tom had barely aged since our Georgia Tech days. Same sharp eyes, same no-nonsense demeanor that had made him a formidable linebacker and now made him a formidable attorney. He studied each photo on Jen's phone with professional detachment. The poison vial, the bank statements showing theft, David's handwritten murder timeline, the threatening letters from Blue Line Capital. "This is substantial," Tom said finally. "But Robert, I have to be honest with you. It's circumstantial. There's no direct confession, no recording of David admitting to attempted murder." "We have the audio from last night," Jen protested. "David talking on the phone about the timing, the symptoms." "I listened to it." Tom shook his head. "It's too garbled, too muffled. A decent defense attorney, and David can afford the best, will argue it could be anyone talking about anything. You can barely make out words." My heart sank. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying David will claim the vial is medication. The documents are business records. The timeline is notes for work presentations. And he'll say you two are either confused, paranoid, or actively trying to frame him." Tom leaned back in his leather chair. Robert, your son has spent 6 months building credibility. Perfect son, taking care of aging father. And Jen, no offense, but you've only been in the family a year. Who do you think the police will believe? Before either of us could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. Hello? Mr. Hayes, this is Officer Patrick Reynolds with Atlanta PD. We've received a welfare check request regarding you. Your son David is very concerned about your well-being. Jen's face went white. He called the cops first, she whispered. Officer, I'm fine, I said carefully. I'm with my attorney right now, actually. Your attorney? Reynolds sounded surprised. Mr. Hayes, your son reports that you've been having some memory issues lately, and there's concern that your daughter-in-law may be influencing you inappropriately. We'd like to do a welfare check in person. Where are you located? Tom grabbed the phone. Officer Reynolds, this is Thomas Mitchell, Mr. Hayes' attorney. I think this requires more than a simple welfare check. We have some serious allegations that need proper investigation. What kind of allegations? Attempted murder for starters. A longer pause. Sir, that's a serious claim. We'd like to speak with everyone involved. Can you come to the station? We'll be there within the hour, Tom said and hung up. He looked at us grimly. David's smart. He's getting ahead of this, building his narrative before you can build yours. What narrative? I asked. That you're mentally declining and Jen is taking advantage, that she's manipulating you, maybe even stealing from you, and trying to frame David when he discovered it. Tom pulled out his briefcase. We need to get to that station and present your evidence before David poisons the well completely. 45 minutes later, we walked into Atlanta Police Department's North Precinct, and there, sitting calmly in the lobby like he owned the place, was my son. David stood when he saw us, his expression perfectly calibrated, worried, hurt, confused. He'd changed into a different shirt, fixed his hair. He looked like the victim here, not the perpetrator. Dad, he said, moving to embrace me. I stepped back. The hurt that flashed across his face looked genuine enough to fool anyone. Officer Reynolds, Tom called out. A uniformed officer emerged from the back, followed by a woman in a detective's blazer. I'm Detective Linda Torres, she said. I'll be handling this. Why don't we all step into interview room 2? As we walked down the hallway, David fell in beside me. Dad, I'm just trying to help, he said, loud enough for the officers to hear. I love you. Why are you doing this? The words made my skin crawl. But I saw their effect. Detective Torres glancing at David with sympathy, at me with suspicion. Tom was right. This was going to be a battle of credibility. And David had a 6-month head start. Interview room 2 was exactly like every police interrogation room I'd seen on TV. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs, camera in the corner. Detective Torres sat across from us, a digital recorder between us. Let's start from the beginning, she said. Mr. Hayes, Sr., you're alleging that your son David attempted to murder you. Is that correct? Yes, my voice was steady. For the insurance money, $750,000. Torres turned to David, who sat with his attorney, some shark in a $3,000 suit who'd appeared 20 minutes ago. Mr. Hayes, what's your response to this allegation? Detective, my father has been having memory issues, David said, his voice cracking with emotion. Small things at first, forgetting appointments, repeating stories. I've been trying to help him, but Jennifer... He glanced at Jen with what looked like genuine pain. I hate to say this about family, but I believe she's been manipulating him, taking advantage of his confusion. That's a lie, Jen said firmly. Detective, I have evidence. Photos of poison in David's desk, bank records showing he stole $280,000 from Robert, a timeline in David's own handwriting planning the murder. Torres looked at the photos on Jen's phone, swiping through them methodically. Mrs. Hayes, these could be pictures of anything. How do I know you didn't plant that vial yourself? Because I can tell you exactly where it is, Jen countered. Bottom right desk drawer behind the folder marked estate planning. It's an amber glass vial, approximately 1 inch tall, containing clear liquid. If you search David's office right now, you'll find it exactly where I said. David's lawyer jumped in. My client's office was broken into this morning. Mrs. Hayes had ample opportunity to plant evidence, or photograph the evidence of her husband's crimes. Tom Mitchell said. Detective, my client is making very specific claims. She's describing exact locations, specific substances. If she's lying, a search will expose that immediately. And if she's telling the truth, then my son has been planning to murder me for months, I finished. Torres studied us all carefully. Mrs. Hayes, you're alleging there's poison. What kind of poison? Digoxin, Jen said. Based on David's notes about cardiac symptoms, that's my educated guess. I'm a former ICU nurse. I know cardiac medications and their effects. Digoxin overdose causes arrhythmias, cardiac arrest. It would look like a heart attack, especially in a 62-year-old man. And you're certain this vial contains digoxin? I'm certain it's not vitamins or aspirin. Test it. Torres leaned back. Mr. David Hayes, do you consent to a search of your office? David's jaw clenched, but his lawyer whispered something to him. Fine, he said finally. Search away. You'll find nothing but business documents and maybe some antacid tablets. My father clearly needs medical evaluation, and I want that on record. Torres pulled out her phone and stepped into the hallway. Through the small window, I could see her making calls. 10 minutes later, she returned. I've contacted Judge Morrison for an emergency search warrant. She's reviewing the request now based on Mrs. Hayes' specific claims. We sat in tense silence. David texted on his phone casually, like we were waiting for a restaurant table, not a search warrant that could send him to prison. 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Finally, Torres' phone rang. Detective Torres. Yes, Your Honor. Understood. Thank you. She hung up and looked directly at David. We have the warrant. Team's already at your address. For the first time, I saw genuine fear flicker across my son's face. Torres' phone rang again 20 minutes later. She stepped out, listened, her expression growing more serious. When she came back, she didn't sit down. Mr. David Hayes, you need to stand up. What? David's lawyer stood too. On what grounds? My team found an unmarked amber vial in your desk drawer, exactly where Mrs. Hayes described. Torres pulled out her handcuffs. The contents field-tested positive for cardiac glycosides, consistent with digoxin. They also found financial documents showing systematic transfers from your father's accounts to a secret account bearing only your name. And this, she held up an evidence bag containing a piece of yellow legal paper. Your handwritten schedule, detailing the timing of your father's planned death, down to the minute. David's face went white. Someone planted it. This is a setup. Stand up, Mr. Hayes. You don't understand. David's voice rose, cracking. I'm drowning in debt. The people I owe money to, they're not patient. They're not reasonable. David, stop talking, his lawyer commanded. But my son was beyond hearing. I didn't want to kill him. His voice broke. But I had no choice. $450,000. Do you know what they do to people who can't pay? David! His lawyer grabbed his arm. He was supposed to die Saturday morning, David screamed, pointing at me. It was supposed to look natural, a heart attack. No one would have questioned it. I needed that insurance money. The room fell silent, except for David's ragged breathing. Detective Torres stepped forward with the handcuffs. David Hayes, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As she read him his rights, I stared at my son, really saw him, for the first time. Not the charming businessman, not the devoted family man, but a cold, desperate killer who'd planned my death with the same methodical precision he once applied to his homework. The son I thought I knew had never existed at all. Detective Torres returned to the interview room an hour after David's arrest, her expression grim. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, we need to talk about the burner phone. Jen sat up straighter. Did you trace the number? We did. It belongs to Gregory Sullivan. The name hit me like ice water. The investor. The silver-haired man at my house this morning. Torres pulled out a photo, Sullivan's professional headshot. Gregory Sullivan isn't an investor. He's a financial consultant based in Miami. The FBI has been tracking him for 3 years. They suspect he's involved in at least 8 suspicious deaths across the Southeast. 8? Jen's voice was barely a whisper. Insurance fraud schemes. His clients are people in desperate financial trouble. Sullivan provides a service. He arranges accidents, makes deaths look natural, helps collect insurance payouts. takes 40% of the payout as his fee. Torres leaned forward. Your son didn't figure out this plan alone, Mr. Hayes. He had professional help. My stomach turned. Where is Sullivan now? Four Seasons Hotel, checked in under his real name. He didn't expect us to connect him to David this quickly. She stood. We're bringing him in now. I need you both to wait here. 2 hours later, Torres led us to an observation room. Through the two-way glass, I watched Gregory Sullivan being escorted into the interrogation room in handcuffs. He looked calm, composed, like being arrested was a minor inconvenience. Sullivan, Torres began, you're being held on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. I'd like my attorney. His voice was smooth, unbothered. Of course. But first, let me tell you what we found in your hotel room. $50,000 in cash, a fake passport, and a laptop with some very interesting files. For the first time, Sullivan's composure cracked. Torres slid a folder across the table. Our forensics team broke your encryption. These are emails between you and David Hayes, discussing services, discussing payment terms, discussing the best methods to make cardiac arrest look natural. Sullivan's jaw clenched. He said nothing. And there are other files, 7 other clients, Mr. Sullivan, 7 other people who paid you to help them commit murder. Torres pulled out more documents. Jacksonville, Charlotte, Birmingham, Nashville. Should I go on? Through the glass, I watched Sullivan realize he was finished. But this is the file that interests me most. Torres pulled out one final document. It's labeled Hayes, Madison. My heart stopped. Madison, David's first wife. Torres continued, her voice hard. Madison Hayes died 18 months ago, age 32, officially cardiac arrest, except your notes tell a different story, don't they? Sullivan stared at the document. First successful operation with DH, Torres read aloud. Client very satisfied. Payout $400,000. Commission $160,000. You helped David Hayes murder his wife. Jen grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Oh God, he killed Madison too. According to your timeline, Torres said, you advised David to administer digoxin over 3 weeks, small doses in her evening tea, gradual enough to look like a developing heart condition. By the time she collapsed, it was too late. The room spun. Madison, sweet Madison who'd loved gardening and rescued dogs, dead at 32, and David had murdered her while I held him at her funeral, told him time would heal. How many people have you killed, Mr. Sullivan? Torres demanded. Sullivan was silent for a long moment. Then, I want to make a deal. Tom Mitchell found me in the hallway, slumped against the wall. Robert, I'm sorry, I know this is... I went to Madison's funeral, I said numbly. Held David while he cried, told him it would be okay, and he'd murdered her. He's a sociopath, Tom said quietly. They fake emotions perfectly. David knew exactly what reactions people expected. Detective Torres emerged. Mr. Hayes, we're exhuming Madison's body. If Sullivan's notes are accurate, we'll find digoxin poisoning. Can I see him? The words came out before I could stop them. David, I need to see him. Torres hesitated. You don't have to. I need to look him in the eye. They brought David into a different interview room. The orange jumpsuit made him look smaller, diminished, but his eyes, flat, empty, those belonged to a stranger. Dad. He stood. I can explain. Madison, I said. You killed Madison. He flinched. I didn't want to. She found out about the gambling, was going to divorce me, take everything. Sullivan said it would be easy, painless. The insurance money would solve everything. $400,000, Jen said, and you gambled it all away again. Blue Line Capital was going to kill me. David's voice rose. They showed me photos of what they did to people who couldn't pay. I was terrified. So you decided to murder your father instead, Tom said. It was supposed to be quick, painless. David ran his hand through his hair. You have $3 million in assets, Dad. The house, retirement accounts, life insurance, more than enough to pay my debts and leave me comfortable. The words hung in the air like poison. You had options, I said quietly. Bankruptcy. Witness protection. You could have asked for help. You wouldn't have given me $3 million. So I should die instead? I stepped closer. Madison trusted you. I trusted you. We loved you, and you weaponized that love. David's expression turned cold. You've never been desperate, never had everything on the line. I've been desperate, I said. When your mother died, when I lost my job at 55, when medical bills piled up, but I never killed anyone. Desperation doesn't erase morality, it reveals character. Then you know what my character is. He leaned back, all pretense gone. I'm going to prison. You win. That's when I understood. David didn't feel guilty. He felt angry about getting caught. I didn't win, I said. I lost my son, except I realize now I never really had him at all. As I left, David called out, "Dad, you have to help me. I'm your son." I didn't turn around. Madison's exhumation confirmed digoxin poisoning. The trial came 6 months later. David's attorney claimed temporary insanity from gambling addiction. The jury didn't buy it. I testified about those warning signs I'd missed. David's sudden interest in my finances, the insurance policy, access to my accounts. I trusted him completely, I said, my voice breaking. I thought I was being a good father. I never imagined every kindness was another step in his plan to kill me. Jen's testimony was devastating. She presented the evidence with calm precision, explaining her medical knowledge that identified digoxin. When David's attorney suggested she'd planted evidence, she looked him dead in the eye. I saved Robert's life. If I was the criminal you claim, why warn him? Why not let him die and take the money myself? The attorney had no answer. Sullivan, facing life regardless, testified against David. It's a simple formula, he explained emotionlessly. Find someone desperate, offer a solution, provide means and method, take a percentage. I've done this for 9 years. You won't be doing it anymore, the prosecutor said. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty, they said. Murder first degree for Madison, attempted murder for me, fraud, theft, conspiracy, life without parole. Sullivan received the same. 1 year later, Jen and I sat in our new kitchen in Decatur. Smaller house, no shadows, morning sun through windows decorated with her plants. Coffee? She asked. Yeah, I can handle coffee again. Therapy had helped. So had our mission, turning trauma into protection. We spoke at hospitals, community centers, senior facilities about elder abuse warning signs. The Atlanta Elder Abuse Prevention Coalition estimated we'd reached 15,000 people. That presentation at Grady this afternoon, Jen said. 2 o'clock? I nodded. This had become our purpose, making sure no one else suffered what we had. The doorbell rang. Jen returned with a manila envelope from Madison's parents. Inside, a photo of Madison in her garden, smiling, and a note. Thank you for making sure David pays. Thank you for turning your pain into purpose. Madison would have liked that. She always wanted to help people. I stared at her smile, thinking about the woman stolen too soon. We carry them forward, Jen said softly. Madison, everyone Sullivan helped murder by making sure it doesn't happen to others. That afternoon at Grady, I held up the framed warning note. Pretend you're sick. Leave now. 5 words that saved my life because someone was brave enough to act. Jen walked the nurses through warning signs, financial manipulation, isolation, sudden insurance policies. If you see these patterns, speak up. Victims often can't see it. They're trusting someone they love. After, a young nurse approached. My grandmother just gave my uncle power of attorney. He's talking about selling her house. She doesn't want to go to assisted living. Jen handed her Detective Torres's card. Call this number. Tell her I sent you. Thank you, the nurse whispered. I thought I was being paranoid. You're being vigilant, I said. There's a difference. That evening, we sat on our porch watching the sunset. The framed note hung inside, reminder of how quickly everything changes and how much courage exists in unlikely places. Do you regret it? I asked, writing that note. Jen looked at me like I was crazy. Robert, your family, real family, not blood or certificates, choice, supporting each other, protecting each other, every single day. I'd adopted Jen after her divorce, my daughter in the way that truly mattered. Madison would have wanted someone to stop him, she added. I like to think I did it for her too. Somewhere, David and Sullivan were in cells. They'd never heard anyone again. And somewhere, 15,000 people had heard our story, learned the signs, maybe saved themselves or someone they loved. 5 words on crumpled paper saved my life. Now those words might save countless others. Pretend you're sick. Leave now. Sometimes the bravest thing is trusting that warning. Sometimes the bravest thing is giving it.